Hola, cage fighting connoisseurs. This is KidNativeBloodyElbow.com with a delayed reaction to yesterday's UFC 178 Media Day brawl between UFC light heavyweight champion Jon Jones and challenger Daniel Cormier. Challenger Daniel Cormier. Oh my God, what can I say? Yesterday I was totally surprised. Wasn't expecting anything from the media day. I was looking forward to the Jones Cormier fight, of course, because Cormier, very talented, dangerous guy, undefeated fighter coming down from heavyweight to fight Jones at light heavyweight, has a better wrestling resume by far than Jones. Is good on his feet, super athletic, demolished Dan Henderson, demolished Josh Barnett. Looked great. In most of his fights, definitely his UFC fights. Had a couple that wasn't that spectacular, but always dominating. But after seeing the brawl yesterday at the presser, I'm just in a tizzy. What can I say? I'm a fight fan. I like to see fights. I like to see conflict. I like to see anger. Most of all, I like to see Jon Jones being a bad guy. Jon Jones instigated the brawl. He escalated the brawl, and then afterwards he took the stage and roared out into the crowd. It reminded me of some of my first childhood memories of being a sports fan as a kid, rooting for the Oakland Raiders in the 70s, even before the Lyle Alzado days, back when it was Kenny the Snake Stabler, Gene Upshaw, Art Shell, John Matusak, Otis Sistrunk, just some mean fuckers. George Atkinson, Jack the Assassin Tatum. I always rooted for these guys. And Jon Jones, I love seeing him come out of his shell as just an unrepentant, mean, bad person. He's not Mike Tyson or anything. He's still a nice college boy ultimately, but he's got this meanness in him. He's got this viciousness. Anybody's been watching his fights. I mean, the way he demolished Shogun, who a while back to take the title, just uses a lot of dirty techniques. Reminds me very much of my sports heroes, the Oakland Raiders of the 70s, Larry Bird, and the Boston Celtics of the 80s. You know, Bird, supposedly just an infamous footstep runner, neat nut shotter, elbow to the throat kind of guy. Uses every advantage to get it, and I can't help it. I've got an atavistic response that gets my blood pumping. It's not something that I'm proud of or whatever. It is what it is. I'm a cage fight fan. I like fights. I like violence. I like mayhem. This brings it all back. Yesterday I was sort of shocked by the fight and then the huge response to it online. And now I am pumped for this fight like so many other people. Cormier just seems like a nice guy. Just, he's Mr. Sports Broadcaster on the Fox Sports 1 and the Fox broadcasts. He wears his dress shirts. Nothing against Daniel Cormier, and yet I'm seized with this mad bloodlust, this desire to see Jon Jones destroy him, or to see Jon Jones get destroyed by Cormier. I'm agnostic. I just want to see mayhem. I like seeing these guys work up a fuss. Of course, Matt Hughes is, in his capacity as a UFC executive, condemned the actions yesterday, and the UFC has to do that. Nevada State Athletic Commission says they're going to look into it, but everybody knows that's just what they have to do. They have to officially disapprove. They can't be letting this happen every time. This has to be something special that's discouraged, heavily discouraged. They can't allow this to become a routine thing, because that would be bad for the sport. But in small doses, little bits of uncontained violence like this, it's been legendary in boxing. I mean, people can call it pro wrestling bullshit if they want to, and some people were saying it was a work yesterday and prearranged. I don't believe that. And to me, the fights that I most remember brawls like this coming were in a boxing. I mean, Lennox Lewis and Mike Tyson brawling. Larry Holmes, I think it was Trevor Berbick, I could be wrong. Larry Holmes jumped off a limo to kick a guy in the head after a presser. David Hay and Derek Chisora got me interested in British boxing for the first time in a dog's age a couple years back. And so there's a long story tradition of this kind of bullshit going on at boxing press conferences, and it just speaks to a real tension and the real desire for catharsis, which is what people are looking for in fight sports, and that's what this fight is promising. Not only do you have two of the best, most skilled athletes and mixed martial artists in the game, in the history of the game maybe, now you've got two guys that hate each other. Two guys that it's easy to work up a head of steam as a fan against either of these guys. Jon Jones, of course, with his DUI, his sanctimonious Christian talk, Daniel Cormier with the goody-goody image, and yet, here's a guy who blew it as the Olympic wrestling team captain in the 2008 Olympics because of unsafe weight cutting practices. He took up a slot and didn't even compete in the Olympics. Somebody stayed home because they lost out to Daniel Cormier, who would have made weight, who would have been healthy, who would have been able to compete. And Cormier let down the team. Coach Mike Reardon will tell you, the Bloody Elbow wrestling specialist, that Cormier's name is not golden in the amateur wrestling or the Olympic wrestling communities, and I totally understand why. I mean, he blew it. He blew it bad. He disgraced his country. Didn't disgrace his country, but he disappointed his country, let down his country. So there's just a lot of heat here, a lot of tension, a lot of anger, and that's what the sport is all about. It's exciting to see. The UFC's had kind of a fallow, slow year, but it looks like things are picking up steam. They definitely noted the low pay-per-view numbers at UFC 174, and they've upped their game in response. And to that, I salute you, Zuffa. But Zuffa had nothing to do with what happened yesterday. That was Jon Jones and Daniel Cormier. Honestly, I think spontaneously reacting. Jones put his face on Cormier. Cormier didn't care to be touched. He shoved Jones. For Jones, that was one toke over the line. Sweet Jesus, he threw a punch at Cormier, and then boom, it just blew up into mayhem. UFC PR head Dave Scholler got shoved off the stage. The scuffle rolled off the stage. Jon Jones' manager Malky Kawa got involved, got accused of throwing punches. The replay showed he was trying to break it up, not throwing punches. Just ugliness and mayhem, and that's what the sport is all about. The ancients, I read somewhere, I heard on the internet or whatever, read on a pack of gum that the ancients in India, when they first invented the game of chess, would put totems at each of the four corners of the chessboard to contain the warlike spirits that were raised by this game. And when chess was first invented, that was heavy duty, realistic. I mean, this is like a computer simulation of warfare back in the Bronze Age, and they wanted to protect and contain. They wanted to protect the world from those spirits of war they were raising up by playing this game. And the octagon sort of serves that same function. The fight is contained within a cage. The fighters are pressured and expected to behave honorably and sportsmanlike until the referee says, let's get it on. And then at that point, they're supposed to unleash it. But sometimes when it breaks out, that really gets people's juices flowing, even though, like everybody other, like geeks like myself, most of the hundreds of thousands of people who've watched the video of Jones and Cormier going at it yesterday, it was mediated by a screen. People are watching on their phones, people are watching on their iPads, on their laptops. Safe distance from these giant, scary, skilled athletes who are just losing their shit and going crazy on each other. I mean, people don't want to be in the middle of a brawl like that. They want to be watching it from YouTube at a safe distance, and that's exactly what this thing gives us. So, I'm all for it. What can I say? I'm totally irresponsible. I'm a bad person. But this is, these were factors that made me like cage fighting in the first place. And so we can go back to honor and respect after this fight. But for now, we've got a mean, ugly feud brewing. And September 27th, UFC 178. It's on, baby. It's going to be hot. And I'm so excited. This is why I love the sport. What can I say? I wanted to get back, though, one point before I wrap up. The Zuffa, they've upped their game. They signed the Nick Diaz versus Anderson Silva fight for next Super Bowl weekend, a fight that makes no sense from a sporting aspect, but it's a fight people want to see. Nick Diaz, Anderson Silva, these are two legends of the game. These are guys that are always entertaining, master martial artists, interesting styles, should be a stand-up fight, totally exciting. They signed Holly Holm to face Ronda Rousey. They're working hard on signing Gina Carano. They're indicating they're open to bringing Cyborg Santos back. Chris Cyborg, not Evangelista, her ex-husband, but Chris Cyborg, bringing her back into the UFC fold. She's never actually been in the UFC fold, but back in the Zuffa fold, and so that they have super fights for Ronda Rousey, who's been their biggest star, but I think Jon Jones just reclaimed the title. I think that this fight could be his big pay-per-view breakout. He's been stalled and stunted ever since he pulled out a UFC 151 bout. It was originally supposed to be Dan Henderson. He was fine with that fight, but Henderson got hurt short notice. They tried to substitute Chael Sonnen. Jones wouldn't have it. He made him reschedule that fight when he had time to train specifically for Chael Sonnen. I respect that position, but the UFC didn't, and they buried him. Dana White called him a sport killer and just trashed him, completely threw him in the grease. Not a good look. I think it stunted Jones's popularity with fans, and I think this feud with Cormier gives Jones a chance to recreate himself as just a total asshole, a heel who does not give a fuck what you think. He's here to hurt people. He's here to beat people. He's here to dominate people and devastate people. Maybe he can do it. Maybe he can't. Cormier is a serious threat. Cormier is fast. He's got excellent boxing. He's got incredibly good wrestling. He's, I think, definitely a better wrestler than Jon Jones. But like Jon Jones said, Cormier may be able to get him down. He doesn't expect Cormier will hurt him. if he does. Jon Jones says, if I get you down once, I will bust you up. I will hurt you bad. And that's the truth. Jon Jones is like a killer stork, like Ted Hendricks of the great Oakland Raiders, just a long, lanky, mean, savage person who inflicts horrible, devastating damage on people. You know, he's a nutshot artist. He eye pokes. He hits people in the throat. You know, Bloody Elbows, Conor Rubish, and Jack Slack and various other analysts have broken down the various dirty techniques he used against Shogun Rua and others. Guy's a mean guy. I love it. Can't wait to see the fight. Anyway, follow me on Twitter. Let me know what you think. @KidNate. Subscribe to MMANation.com on YouTube. Read us on BloodyElbow.com. Eugene and I will be back with our long-awaited talk about the Timothy Snyder book, Bloodlands, about the Ukraine and Poland and Belarus in World War II, and the movie Come and See, Russian movie from the 80s about the same period. Going to be talking about Joseph Stalin, Nazis, concentration camps, the battle for the Warsaw Ghetto. Gonna be ugly. That's our show, Intrigue. Eugene, I'll be doing that Thursday morning, and then we'll be back next week to get ready for the OSP Ryan Bader show with all the usual vivisections and all that. And Dallas Winston and the crew are going to have a special vivisection this week, also on Thursday. Sorry about the double booking. Had some schedule conflicts on Wednesday. Anyway, adios MMA aficionados. This is Kid Nate. We'll see you next time.